Well, kind of when I was born. My mom didn't find out until I was like 6 months that I had a disability. And then for all of my youth, up until probably 16 years old, I thought I had cerebral palsy. I didn't. I don't. And then I learned that I have a muscular dystrophy. I've always been an admirer and a learner of the fashion industry, and I think I always knew that I wanted to be in the industry before I even knew the term or even that was a career move at all. My mom was a seamstress, so she told me 2 years ago that I was really close to being born in a factory because she hid me from her boss, which is really illegal to do, up until 2 weeks before I was born, which is funny knowing how my life then took a turn when I went to college. I went to FIT in New York City and studied marketing, even though I wanted to go in for design because I knew it was going to be a difficult road for me specifically because I have a visible disability, and none of my peers did at the time when I was in college. That if I wanted to excel in what I did, I would have to like really study and get that going so that nobody can make an excuse that I didn't know what I was doing. So I chose to go the long route there. My mom raised me extremely independent. It was like military school every single day when I grew up because my mom is Dominican, so I'm Dominican, and in the Latin culture, we're very survival of the fittest, I think, is the phrase that I'm looking for, and a lot of immigrant families just have that in their blood, and they pass that along to their children to like, if there was an apocalypse, you will survive. And then modeling, just honestly, I was a nightlife girl in my early 20s. I met the creative director at the time of Diesel, the clothing brand, and he posted on Facebook when Facebook was Facebook. Not Facebook now, but when Facebook was Facebook, when it was like the place to be, he posted a casting call, and I remember a friend of mine was like, you should do it. And at that time I was just like being a model for my friends. It wasn't really anything, wild. It was just stand-in model. And he's like, you should do it. You never know. And I was like, I'm not a model. I don't want to be a model. And I don't think it was because I didn't want to be a model. I just, in my mind, I guess at the time, never saw it. So it's like, how do you want to be something you've never seen before? But because I like adventure, I was like, yeah, why not? And I was one out of 23 models that were chosen out of like thousands of people to be the face of that collection that time. And I did not understand or compute the gravity of what I said yes to as far as the representation for the disability community being in a high fashion worldwide campaign where every single person and their grandmas saw me in my full self, like in my chair and everything, and that went viral. I think from there I had to choose whether if I wanted to continue the career that I was studying for at FIT or if I wanted to take the turn to being a model. And just modeling sounded way more fun. That's how modeling started, and then acting was about 7 years ago. I got a audition for this TV show that was a reboot. And when I was in my I think it was like 21, maybe 20, I used to hide this specific TV shows from my parents. It was like I shouldn't be watching the show, but I was obsessed with the show. So when I got the audition, I was like, what's wild is not only was the show forbidden in my household, but my character's name is my mom's name. So I had to do it. I talk all the time about representation and how if you're going to talk about us, we should be in the room. And it's very aggravating to see when a non-disabled person takes a disabled role, and that opportunity, even though I didn't sign up to be an actor, I felt like it was going to be something that I needed to do out of respect for myself and respect for my community. And this TV show was the L Word, Generation Q. It was Showtime. It's a really big network. So I felt like I needed to take that opportunity. And I told myself if I did not find it fun within a year that I would leave, but I found it way too much fun, so I'm still here. So I think it was the second season that the showrunner, the director, and a couple of writers came up to me on the L Word to ask me about my sex life, which, if you do not know of the L Word, every single episode there is some sort of sex scene. So not having one for a whole season was very unheard of for a character to have. And I feel like verbatim told them, well, it's about time. What's the story? Tell me the story. Are we having an orgy? Are we having a threesome? I'm thinking it's gonna be something diabolically juicy. And they're like, oh, you're just gonna be with your boyfriend. So, before I did the scene, I actually genuinely searched it up to see what I could find. And I was saddened to see that there wasn't anything out there except for like really, really bizarre amateur porn. But nothing that really portrayed the experience. The very few things I did see though, I did see Crimping Up Sex. That was really educational, and everyone should go and search that up and learn something. But yeah, there was just, at least in TV and film, there wasn't anything that I can say that portrayed my experience or experience of disabled people. It was just really important for me to make sure that if somebody were to search it up now, that they would find my scenes, and they would feel seen, and they would feel like they can have this conversation with other people. And representation is just really important. It can save a life, for real. And sex and for disabled people is important to have in film. So I took this situation very delicately, and I told them that we had to have multiple conversations so they could be as perfect as possible, that it has to look hot. That was my one no. I said it must. If anything, the wording could be horrible. What I'm wearing could be horrible, but it has to visually look sexy. It was my no. I probably said it exactly like that. Because I knew that people were going to be feeling a lot of different feels. People who are in the community, in the disability community, people who are not in the disability community, people who've never even known it was even possible, as I roll my eyes. But I felt like a really big responsibility to make sure that this, one, it would be the first, of its kind, but also I wanted to live on so that other TV shows and movies can take that as kind of a guiding, kind of a guide to understand how crucial and how necessary it is to shoot it in a way where it is appealing to everybody. And I am pleased to say that not only was it hot, but I still get told about it today, and people loved it. And there's people that I was like, I just saw it yesterday, and I was like, you saw me naked, okay. But it's beautiful, and I loved it, and I genuinely hope that people in the industry can see how something that is or was considered taboo really, really beautiful. But I know my younger self would freak out seeing me. Not in the oh, you're so cool, in the what? What do you mean you're me in the future kind of thing, But after the shock, I feel, there'd be so many things. I think I would tell her just to enjoy life a little bit more. I was very stressed when I was a child, and I was hyper aware about too many things, and I think I missed out on a few life moments that I could have just not cared about what other people thought. Although that I feel like that did make me who I am today. So I'm not sure I would change anything, but I would tell her that she's not alone and she doesn't have to feel alone, and that there is a beautiful community out there who's going to accept her exactly the way, you know, she is, and she does not need to change at all for anybody, whether that's physical change or mindset or emotion or anything, just to not feel so discouraged of who she is, which is something that she really can't control. I would tell her that the disability community she's going to one day feel so a part of. And that community is so important, and it's gonna save her from a lot of like overthinking and manic moments and crash outs maybe for trying to make people understand who are not in the community, when she could have just found her community in the disability community, and felt a little bit more seen and heard. I came up with the idea to hit up Lauren Spanister and say, hey, I wish like our conversations that we talk about could be recorded. I was like, would you be down to do a podcast with me? It's called We've Been Like This. That's the podcast name. We've been like this because we have. It always seems like the disability community is always left behind from these spaces, and we noticed that there wasn't many out there that had our unique perspective of being in the industry as long as we've been, and as someone who's, you know, removed glass ceilings like we both have. And we felt like, you know, maybe other people can inspire or take note and kick ass on their own too.